So Google Sheets doesn't handle multiple regression too well, and even if it did, the output, it's not really designed for statistical tests, so it doesn't have some parts of the output you'd get from a statistical software. So let me show you how you could save this. Let's download it as a CSV file. Okay, Fitbit data copy of regression. And I'm going to open up JASP, browse, go to downloads. Here we go. And hopefully that will open it up. There we go. Okay, so now the question is, how do we conduct a regression on this data? Well, we go to regression. Even though it's a multiple regression, this is still a type of linear. I don't know that that was real clear in the book. So my dependent variable is the same as my y. I'm just holding down Shift to get all of these, put them in as my covariates, and bam, I have the regression model. That should look familiar. That was the same p-value that we saw before. So we've seen all this before in the one I ran in the Excel. The reason I'm doing this, got a couple not availables there. This is really the column that I wanted to show you. Doing a little quick problem solving on the fly, we can see that the thing those two have in common is this asterisk, which is originally a colon. So what I've done is open up that CSV file. I could have done this in Sheets before I exported it. I'm just going to take that colon out of these two variable titles and save that. Yes, I will continue. They'll ask me again. Okay, and I'm opening up that file again now. Hopefully it I think this was it. Yes, and now the change is there. So now if I go run that same regression again, put the deep sleep as my dependent, the rest as my covariates, I get this model that has all of the standardized variables, and this is what I really want. So just to recap, these coefficients right here are unstandardized, which means they're in the original units. The original units doesn't always make sense. In this first row that we have a covariate, this is minutes, so this is being measured in minutes. This is being measured in levels of fan speed. This is basically just measured in level of if you have caffeine or not. So yeah, the problem is you can't compare those things directly. So we can interpret them. Actually, they're much easier to interpret because they're in the original units of minutes, years, beats per minute, things like that that we're used to. But if we want to compare them head to head, what we had looked at before was the p-value, and certainly the lower the p-value here, the more we're convinced that this might be a statistically significant predictor. But the one thing we didn't really touch on is how do we rank them in terms of their relative size to each other. And that's what this standardized coefficients do. So it's basically taking these and putting them on the same scale. So what we're looking for here is the biggest numbers possible, the absolute value. So the biggest one here would be the girls crying factor. The next biggest would not be this reading versus screen time. That's the next biggest positive one, but the next biggest absolute value would be this minutes after 10. So notice this was a very small number compared to the others because it was being measured in minutes. Every minute it would have this change every minute, every minute, every minute. So those minutes add up quickly. And if you want to see as a whole the variable, how it compares to the other ones, well, it's the second most powerful variable here in the model, the second most powerful predictor next to the girls crying. And then we do have that screen time versus reading showing up as fairly impactful. Caffeine is also coming up there, salty snacks, all the way down to the fan speed, as we were able to basically from this p-value say that it's the least likely to be a statistically significant predictor, it's also the weakest in terms of the strength of its predictive power over and above all the other variables being in the model. So I just wanted to show you real quick an advantage of using this statistical software is that you do get this additional bonus, and there were all kinds of other things I could specify if I wanted to go into more detail. So there are advantages with using this software above Google Sheets and Excel, what they have to offer.